Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima. Welcome back to Blue Boards. This time we're going to be taking a look at Marvel Legendary, or Legendary, a Marvel deck building game as its full name is, but I've taken to just calling it Marvel Legendary because it's just easier. And there are multiple versions of this, so you gotta know what you're referring to. This is a deck building game that was released around 2012, and deck building hadn't exactly been massively worked on at the point that this game had come out. It was like 2 years after Dominion really popularized the idea, and then Ascension came along in 2011. So this was trying something new by integrating both a cooperative and competitive experience at the same time, which is an interesting concept. But I'll tell you right now, the competitive side of things just kind of falls flat for obvious reasons. Also, I haven't actually played this with anybody. I've played it single and dual-handed, and we're in the middle of a dual-handed game right now, which is 2 players, but I'm playing with both of them. So the basic idea is there's a mastermind over there on the left. He's got a scheme that he's trying to pull off. There are multiple different schemes and multiple different masterminds, and you just kind of mix and match them together whatever way you please, and it creates a fair bit of variety, which I appreciate. In this case, it's Portals to the Dark Dimension, where every time a Scheme Twist card comes out of the Legendary deck, you put it over the top of one that doesn't have a Scheme Twist yet, and it gets a portal, which makes the enemies there stronger. So you find yourself needing to try and hold back the tide, but the tide is slowly getting stronger and stronger as it goes along. And if too many of them come out of the villain deck, you lose. In order to win, you need to take out the mastermind, and that is Red Skull in this particular case. You need to take out the mastermind 4 times. I've currently done it twice. If we look to the left there, you can see on the victory pile that I've got 1 Hydra mastermind card there. And if we turn to the right, you can see that we've got another Hydra mastermind card there. And if you're wondering what that is, that's just my impromptu turn marker, so I don't get confused if I need to get up and walk away and do something else. But yes, you need to take him out 4 times by getting up 7 combat power. But while you're doing that, minions are going to be advancing along the city and trying to get out of the city. And if they get out of the city, things bad can happen. And you've also got plenty of bystanders to worry about. Some of them get shuffled into the deck, but some of them will add bystanders to the particular villains. And if they get away with the villains, you'll end up losing a card from your hand. You'll lose a new card to buy from the HQ and what have you. So it can be a little bit rough if you let too many of them go, which can be annoying. So just for the purpose of demonstration, let me walk you through a turn. So instead of actually taking advantage of our 6-card hand, we draw a card from the villain deck first. And in this case, it's a minion. It is the Savage Land Mutants. They have a combat strength of 3, a score of 1, and when we fight them, we get a bonus ability off them. And the new villain gets added to the row. And so the idea is there'll be this slowly advancing corridor of villains going on, and you need to try and take them out, because in this scheme it doesn't matter much, but there are other schemes which change the game up massively. Like, for example, there's one that adds a bunch of bystanders to the villain deck, and they move along in the same way because they're actually killbots, and letting too many of them escape will fail the game. So the game does know how to vary it up a fair bit, and there's like half a dozen schemes in the base box that all change up the way the villain wins and you win. So I appreciate the overall concept going on there. It keeps things varied. So let's take an opportunity to do our turn. So we have cards here, and they all have different effects. So for right now, I've got 4 of the basic cards that the deck starts out with. These are the shield agents, and they are only worth 1 point apiece, if you can see in the weird focus there. You can also see up top in the KO area, which is where cards get discarded, you can see an upside down shield trooper, which will give you 1 combat strength. And using these star points, for example, we can buy a card from the HQ. We currently have 4, but we also have some hero cards in our hand, and they usually have specific effects. So if I can actually get the focus to work on these 2, there we go. So we got Black Widow here, and we got Iron Man. You take 5 heroes from the box, of which there are 15, and shuffle them in order to make the hero pile that you see there. And every time you buy one, one gets refreshed. Every time one escapes, you lose one from that row, etc. And they each have their own effects and their own costs. So Iron Man here costs me 7 coins to buy, 7 stars to buy, whatever the hell you want to call them. And I can use him to draw 2 cards, but if I've played someone with the same either faction, or I don't remember what this is called, but it's basically a type, it chains off of it. It's kind of like the Hero Realms thing, where if you play something with that symbol, any other card that goes after it gets that symbol. So, if we played her second, we could rescue a bystander, but there's no bystanders to rescue, so we'll play her first. And then we're going to do him. So we get to draw 5 cards total, because it's got that symbol there. So we draw 5 more from our deck. The entire game is about finding these combos and making them work. And you might think that it's all just a little bit haphazard, especially when you come across a character like Deadpool, whose entire concept... I'm actually shuffling this deck right now because there wasn't enough cards left to draw from player 1's deck. I've added the 5th to the pile there. So you might think there's a bit of a weird combo thing going on because you've got Deadpool, who actually has some cheaper cards that put bystanders into play, but then bring along someone like Black Widow, where her entire main thing is, hey, I've got this ultimate attack, and this ultimate attack does an extra damage for every bystander I've rescued. So there are these little combos that you can find that are all really fun. So I've already put these guys down here, but what did we get for our bonus 5 cards? Well, we got the Hulk, so we got 5 damage. We've got here, hold this for a second, which puts a bystander in play. That's unfortunate. A shield officer. You can buy these at pretty much any time by spending 3 points. If you've got nothing else to spend it on, she's just worth 2 more points, so we'll put her down there. Hawkeye is going to let us draw a card. That's nice. And have we played an Iron Man symbol? Well, just a card with that symbol yet? I don't think we have. That's unfortunate. So that's just an extra 2. So let's put that with the rest of the combat encounters now. So we've got to put a bystander in play to make the Deadpool card work. So we'll just put a bystander on a villain of our choice. And that bystander gets away, we lose a card from our hand. So let's just sort out what we've got going here. We draw a card first. It's a shield trooper, so we just add that to our combat strength. And our total, another combat strength there. Put those guys out of the way, we won't need them right now. And so, just to give you an idea, let's pull that back just a little bit. Just work with me on this one. So we got 5, 7, 8, 9 combat strength. And we've got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points to spend. So, there we go. There's the focus working for you now. So we got 9 combat strength and 8 points to spend. So we will spend those points on something that will combo correctly with our deck. Because we know we've got a lot of these based on previous moves I made in this game. So those would be a good move to make. Having some extra draw power wouldn't go right. And that one there, you get 1 for each other of that symbol that we played this turn. So I think we're going to grab the 2 of these for just a flat 8. Put that into what's going to be our new discard pile. Same with these ones because they're done. And that will be the entirety of our buys done. And then we fill up the hero spaces with new cards. Easy done. Each hero has, I believe it's 5 commons, 5 uncommons, 3 rares, and an ultimate card. That is the most powerful one that they've got. So you'll be seeing a lot of these cheaper ones, but when you can put a lot of them together into a nice combo, it actually works out pretty well. So now let's deal with our combat strength. So we've got 9 there. Technically, Red Skull has 8 power, but since we overwhelm him with 9 power, that's a good thing because we can defeat him. Easy done. So we reveal the top card from the Mastermind deck, which has been shuffled before this point, and we perform the effect on it. If we can, there we go. Fight, you get 3 extra combat strength. Cool. Bit weird to get a reward for beating the crap out of him instead of him trying to actively stop us, but there you go. So now we only need to defeat him 1 more time and the game is over. So the game does have a very notable arc where you're just trying to get all your heroes together. You're trying to make their effects work. And thankfully there are some cards which look useless at first, but then you realize being able to draw a card and having an extra combat power isn't the worst thing in the world. And there are some other cards like that which are a little bit weird too, but finding these combos is usually pretty easy because they're not over the top varied in how they work, the heroes. So they do work alright as is. With that said though, sometimes you can just get bad combinations, especially when you're playing solo, which only lets you use 3 heroes in the hero deck instead of 5, and so it can be kind of hard to find all those combos. With that said, we've finished our turn, so play moves over to the next player. which is the one on the right with his hand after we draw 6 cards to replace the hand that we just used. And play continues on like that. You're drawing cards from the villain deck, whether they be people to fight, bystanders that immediately need to go to the nearest villain, or whether it be Master Strikes, which have certain effects. For example, for Red Skull, it's each player KOs a hero from their hand, so basically you just have to remove a card from the game, along with other things like that. And it is a very smooth experience, because the rules are very simple to understand after you've read through the rulebook once or twice. The gameplay is pretty quick. Once you've summed up all your totals, it's pretty easy to know what you can do and what you can't do. And the conveyor belt of villains going on there is... it's a simple concept, but it's an interesting concept, and it does work well enough to keep the thread on. The schemes are all pretty varied, the masterminds are pretty varied, and the hero cards all do merge together in a nice way. They do make their own little combos once you've got the randomizers figured out, or when you just pick 5 heroes to go with on your own. So they'll be making nice combos, you'll be using them to do well in the game. It's all pretty simple and easy to understand stuff. However, the game does have a few problems. Number 1, all the cards from one particular hero or one particular kind of villain all have the same art. I can understand it for the villains, and they're like they're cronies, you know, it makes sense in that scheme. But for the heroes, with all these different moves and all these different effects, they all have the same artwork on those cards. And I gotta tell you, man, it's a little rough, but I will admit, every expansion after this, they learned their lesson and all the art is different. And it also helps with sorting the cards out so that you know what hero goes where. But it does look a little weird, but I'm willing to let them off on that one. The second one is that the game's actually got a competitive element, so you're all cooperating to try and take out the mastermind, because if the mastermind wins, you all lose. But you might have noticed before that I mentioned that there were actually points on the particular cards. So at the end of the fight, you actually count up all the points you've earned from minions you've defeated, mastermind stages you've defeated, bystanders you've rescued, and everything in between, right? And the player who got the most of them wins. But at the same time, it seems incredibly strange to me to try and balance a game in such a way that it's meant to be a tough cooperative challenge, but also a tough competitive challenge where everyone is able to get their own benefits and get their own stuff out of the way, to the point where I'm worried that someone who's playing a bit too competitively might think to do something that actively cripples the whole team as a result. And it's just weird like that, because if you took those points out, the game would probably run fine just as a cooperative deck builder. But yeah, for some reason they decided competitive needed to be in there. Maybe they were inspired by Dominion and Ascension. But at the same time, that rule is incredibly easy to ignore. Just flat out, let it go, don't worry about it, you win if you win. That's absolutely fine. With that said though, the biggest problem that the game's got, I can forgive the art, I can forgive the competitive side of things, I can forgive a couple of other like really minor niggles that I won't bother mentioning too much. But here's the big problem with it. It's way too easy. It's genuinely one of the easiest cooperative games I've ever played. I have not lost a single game since I pulled this out of the box, and I've played like 5. Get this. I read the manual wrong, so instead of drawing up to 6 cards every turn, on my first game, I was drawing up to 5, and I still won. It was a little close, but I still won, despite unintentionally crippling myself. I don't know how I managed to do it, but I did it. And even when you're playing solo, it's even easier, because notably, you get more villains in the deck, you get more potential dangers in the deck, as you add more players. So if you're playing this solo, and even if you did what I did, went online and grabbed the solo rules from the Dark City expansion, the Legendary base box is still way too easy. Genuinely just too easy for its own good, because you can beat everything on your first or second try, and then you'll wonder what the point is. And it's kinda like throughout the entire game, because you've got villains that you'll hit them and they'll deal bad effects to you. That's okay. But sometimes they'll give you good effects, like the Mastermind that gave me 3 extra combat power. If I managed to build up enough combat power in one hand, I could probably take out 2 Masterminds in one turn and just wipe the floor with the game in that way. And there's minions and villains that do that, the Mastermind does that, and it just gives you that little bit of a push along, and everything else is just kinda not able to keep up the slack. The cards are powerful enough to take advantage of the fact that it's all a relatively easy game, and so as a result, you'll end up winning most of your games if you're doing relatively well, if you're finding the combos, if you're not getting, like, I've been playing mostly with a randomizer, but even with the randomizer and the 5 random heroes, I've still been doing absolutely fine. I've been winning every game. And even then, imagine if you managed to get a 5 hero combination that was just an absolute brick, and that was the reason you lost, and not because the game was actually putting up much of a fight, because, yeah, it's rough. It's a little bit rough in just how easy it is, which is disappointing. And I understand that Marvel Legendary is full of expansions, most of which up the difficulty significantly and kind of just let the whole competitive thing fall by the wayside. They get rid of the problem where all the cards have the same art, and it's just more content on top of that. And the game system itself is actually good. This conveyor belt of villains increasing tension and making it so that you'll start suffering if they get away. The schemes and the scheme twists making each individual game feel different. The Masterminds having the potential to screw you over in different ways. The villain groups having the potential to screw you over in different ways, and of course, all the different heroes you can get, each of which can have their own thing. Like, the Hulk is massive damage. Iron Man is a bit more utility with drawing cards. Black Widow is based around rescuing bystanders. Deadpool is just an oddball. Captain America is based around having different colors of heroes, so you're getting as many heroes of many different kinds as you can into your deck, and so on and so on and so on. They're all unique in their own ways, and it keeps things interesting. It's just a shame the base box is so easy. I'm not the sort of person who can say, go and buy an expansion for the game to be worth it, because I'm not the sort of person who would recommend that you should do that. But at the very least, I can say with Legendary that the base game system itself is still enjoyable. It's still fun to be building up your deck of heroes, finding the combos, and defeating the Mastermind. I just gotta say that it really is just so easy that you might think to yourself, well, if the rest of the expansions are going to be like this, I don't want to buy anymore. Although that does bring up one of my other problems with the game, the way you store it. So let's just very gently put this box down here on top of the board. This is how they expect you to store it. These grooves are way too thick to have just a small amount of cards for each particular Mastermind or villain or what have you. They give you these, like, colorless dividers that don't have any writing on them whatsoever, and you just kind of have to flip through and hope you find your thing, and the entire thing just feels kind of unstable at the end of the day, to the point where if you shake it too hard, things might fall a bit out of place. It's a really weird example of a box insert. I don't know exactly what they've got going on there, but there you go. Not to mention that every card in the game can easily fit in this box and still leave room for like a couple hundred more. Although at the very least, if you do what most people recommend you do and buy the Dark City expansion, you'll at least be able to store it all in this box. There's almost no way you wouldn't be able to make that work. So yeah, that was my opinions on Marvel Legendary. It's a good game system. Building decks is really fun with the 5 different heroes. Considering you get 15 heroes in the box, it opens the floor for a bit more variety. Masterminds and schemes mixed together also create a bit of variety, and the schemes in particular do help keep the game fresh over repeated plays. The villain deck, with how it can surprise you with like having 5 out of 7 scheme twists coming out, or just have an absolute ton of villains coming out that you can't take care of and slowly advancing along the line, keeps games at least relatively tense. Except it's let down by the fact that the competitive stuff sucks. The box is kind of awful. I wish it was slightly better at helping you store cards. And the fact that the game's too easy. It's just too easy for its own good. It could do to be a fair bit harder. Would I recommend it? There's an ish on the end here. Yes, ish. The game is fun. I'm enjoying it. I'll probably pick up Dark City and see how it really does, like, finish up the base box, adds to its variety, adds to the difficulty, etc, etc, etc. But if you're not willing to go that far, if you're not willing to buy this out on, like, say, a trial run, and say, hey, if I like this, maybe it'll be worth picking it up, or maybe you're just, not to use a particularly mean term here, but if you're not very good at board games, if you find yourself struggling with the harder examples like Aeon's End or D-Day Dice or Arkham Horror, or as I've actually been struggling with a bit lately, Marvel Champions, this might be worth picking up. Give you something a little bit more gentle, let you think more about the strategies that you'll need in order to succeed. Although if you do plan on playing solo, please go online and get the Dark City rules. It just makes a couple of tweaks to make the one-handed true solo experience just that little bit more interesting. But yeah. Yes-ish. It's good. But it's also really easy. And some of the rules don't make any sense. And the art is kind of weird. But it's still a yes-ish. This has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.